Hey guys, Steven Martinez with The American Dream. I just want to say a big thanks to all our supporters and fans. It's because of you guys that we're able to keep growing. Having said that, please don't forget to follow and subscribe. It means a lot to us. That's what helps us keep growing. And also, I hope you guys enjoy the next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to The American Dream podcast. Here with a very good friend, my man Joe, branding expert. One of the most overlooked things, I think, in general, man, for business. It's funny when I meet a lot of my friends that have sold their companies, like to private equity. They, as soon as they sell, they go back to the bottom and the root of the foundation to rebrand.
Right.
So before we get into all that good stuff with branding and rebranding and imagery, logos, all that good stuff, what's kind of your story on how you created image graphics?
Yeah, so I'll try to kind of nutshell it in a little bit. I'm 54 years old, but at the end of the day, I've always had that, I guess, entrepreneurial spirit. When I was a kid, I had a lawn mowing company, I had a detail company in the neighborhood. I always tried to figure out how to make money. My mother was an accountant, my dad was a police officer, so money was always, we were middle class, but you know, if I wanted to buy something new or if I wanted to buy the end bike or whatever, I'd have to take care of it. I just started trying to make money, whether it was selling lollipops in school, whether it's, like I said, having a lawn mowing a lawn mowing company or a detailing company. That's what we did. We hustled it, and it was just in our neighborhood, but I mean, it was one of those things where I've always done it. My parents taught me both work ethic, like extremely good work ethic. So every job I ever had, I've had raving reviews, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't something that I can work for somebody. I didn't want to work for somebody. Fast forward to high school, wasn't a very good student. I'm probably a C average student, if that. It was back in the day when people graduated and you could graduate with not enough credits. Well, I'm that guy. Okay. I graduated and I needed 2 credits or 2 half credits to be able to get my diploma. Well, I ended up walking and not getting my diploma, and then going to summer school and getting my credits, and then getting my diploma afterwards. So I think it was one of the last 2 years they actually offered that. Mm-hmm. I went to a junior college because that's the only college that I could get into, because you know when you're growing up in 89 and 80s, your thing was go to college, get a good job, things of that nature. So I went to school on an engineering / architectural drafting, direction. Man, I hate math, and all my classes were math because of engineering. My grades dropped dramatically, so I was just trying to get some credits up. So I took a lot of gym classes and a lot of art classes. Well, one of my teachers said, had I ever looked into commercial art? I had no idea what commercial art was. And she said, well, anything like advertising or logos or things like that, marketing companies. And I was like, I've never heard of this. So I talked to my mom, and my mom, the best marketing school in Texas is Texas Tech. Well, she's like, I'm not sending you all the way up there. You already wasted my money on junior college. Not doing that. So I found the Art Institute of Houston, went there for a couple of years, did not graduate because I didn't have the money to put together my portfolio at the end of the year, or at the end of the 2 years. So, but I got a job because I needed a job, and my dad was a police officer in Stafford, and so he got me a job at a sign company. Well, the sign company was it was an architectural sign company, meaning egress maps in big buildings, big signs in the front of these big buildings, like in downtown Houston, things like that. So as a kid that was coming in, they gave me a job as their art director. Basically just a glorified guy looking at blueprints and putting the maps on somewhere where they could etch the maps that go right by the elevator to where you can escape. Did that for a little bit. It was okay. I got recruited by a commercial sign company. The commercial sign company and architectural sign company are similar, but they're different because these are now the signs that you see driving down the road for strip centers. Okay. So I started doing that, liked that a little bit. And then I actually ended up transitioning to another sign shop called a one day sign shop. So those are more your banners, your stickers, and things like that. When I was doing that, I had a couple of friends of mine who were racing race cars, like little dwarf cars on dirt tracks. And they would ask me, hey, can you design some numbers for me? Mm-hmm. Well, I liked that because it gave me some freedom to be creative. So I started doing multi-layer stickers that just have different kinds of aesthetics to it, and then I would design characters for their cars, and then design race graphics for their cars, and I really, really liked that. Eventually, I got married, and my wife, or my ex-wife, got pregnant, and so I ended up find something different. So when I did that, I ended up going to work for Ozarka Water for about a year and a half. Okay. When I did that, I hurt my back, and I knew that wasn't for me because Ozarka Water said, hey, you know what, you hurt your back, but we still need you to come into work. That didn't work out for me. And so I decided I was going to go ahead and leave that and went back into the sign industry. And long story short, from there, I started doing my own thing. Rented a sublet from a silk screening place. And then this whole thing came around where wraps finally started coming out. So instead of just doing one sticker, we started using a film that actually had the ability to push air out where you weren't sticking it in there having all these bubbles. And so we got into that. Fast forward to 2000, I opened up my own company, Image Graphics, out of my apartment. My first client was Gerald Plumbing, and they're still in existence now, but they're Abacus. But I started doing all their trucks and doing everything out of my little bitty, I guess, studio in my apartment, on a table that I built inside there with a cutter and a thing. Uh-huh. Image kind of blew up a little bit later. It was there, as the base company, but I didn't really I just had enough money to pay the bills. Went through a really tough dissolution of a marriage with my ex-wife. Ended up having to separate. When I separated, really having nowhere place to go. At that time, I was really ready to hang everything up and just be like, I'm done with all this stuff. I don't want to do this anymore. It was too hard. Ended up sleeping at my shop. And when I slept at my shop, it kind of, first I was bored. And then I was like, look, let's work on some designs. And then all of a sudden, then it's like, the internet was like kind of kicking in right then. Like full force. And I was like, okay, well, let's look up some stuff. When I did that, I started getting inspired by some of the things that were going on. The next 3 years was super hard, being away from my girls, getting my girls every now and then, through this dissolution. And so for me, I just kind of dove into the business. And so when I dove into the business, I kind of rekindled that fire of that. Started really taking more of the lines of being a lot more creative with designs and things like that. And so from then on, we just started really going into the fleet industry. We tried to dabble in the color changes and all the other tint and stuff like that, but our core competency now is 95% fleets, and everything, like we have probably 5%, they're just miscellaneous stuff that we can kind of fit in, wall wraps, PPF, things of that nature. We don't do that very often because it's more restyling and more for the companies that do auto salon stuff. But we try to take care of all the service industries, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roofing, all those kind of companies. But I did take the design style the way that I did and took it and brought it into that industry. Whereas everything was so kind of monochromatic and things of that nature where everything was just very blah. And we started introducing more. There was a lot of pushback in the beginning, and there still is some today because people want to lock themselves into the norm. But imagery and the way branding happens now is so kind of cool because everything has evolved to a logical sense and in more of a creative sense. There's a lot more people that are open to differences as opposed to staying within the standard norm. But that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of where, I've come from, and that's how we grew the company. We're 25 years old. I've been in the industry, sign graphics industry, for about 30 years. And for the longest time, man, it was just me and one other installer, and we just bootstrapped it. Back then, there wasn't a whole bunch of marketing. Back then, there wasn't a whole bunch of social media. So it was just trying to grind it. I'm proud to say that, we kind of did it in a way where I don't have any silent investors. I don't have anything. It's a good and a bad thing, but I can look back and go, I didn't have to sell my soul to get to where I'm at right now. But we're a 25-year-old overnight success. So it's one of those things where that's the part where I take pride in, and now it's just a matter of evolving and going from there.
Nice. Whenever you're looking at, I guess, logo and design as a company in general over the 25 years,
How are you able to analyze the data on that, on what works and what doesn't work whenever you're doing that?
So a lot of it is, I've spent so many years in the psychology of art, psychology of color, composition.
Talk to me a little bit about that, the psychology behind the art and
So
color.
there's a lot of things that go behind logos. There's a lot of things that go behind color combinations. You wouldn't want to put, in theory, you wouldn't want to put a color of fluorescent yellow and a bright blue for a company that's going to be a restaurant. Meaning the psychology behind that is colors that attract or make people want to be hungry are colors that are in the reds or greens or browns, things that kind of invite that. Now, you can get super nerdy about why that color does that.
Yeah,
but
why?
the color,
Please, I want to know.
Reds are very inviting and warm colors. Okay. Most food that you eat is warm. So when it comes down to that part, you're trying to bring in, kind of tie in experiences and then going from there. Now the kicker is that my experiences in as that generation back then where we didn't have internet, like I'm the last generation that didn't have internet. So there was like literally nothing. No cell phones, no internet, anything like that. I remember those days as a young adult where we didn't have that. Nowadays, everything is different. The experiences that younger generations have could make that hyper yellow, bright blue color, make it inviting because they may have experience that led that way. So the psychology of it's always evolving, but the problem is that people have to step into the world of what evokes an emotion to be able to get your end result, whether it's a sale, whether it's somebody coming into your shop, whether it's somebody buying your product, whatever that might be, there's always something that goes into that. I'm sure you've seen, like you've gone down, especially being a business owner, you've gone and you've seen a company, you're driven by a truck and you're like, dude, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
The problem is that there is a rhyme and reason for everything. I think the way God created everything is that even in, I don't even know what it's called, but there's a shell that's all like, if you cut it in half, it's got like a little cylinder thing in it.
A hunk?
No, maybe it's not conch. It's another one where it's a mathematical, they use it a lot in mathematics. And so when it comes down to it, there's a rhyme and reason for everything. So there's a reason why people have emotions that are I guess influenced by different things, whether it's a visual, whether it's clarity, whether it's composition, whether it's color. So when we go into things and we start looking at logos, number one, we have to start looking at what appeals to whatever your end user is going to be. You may have a kids group that has a super childlike mascot that'll appeal to that client. You may have a sports team where you want to come off as aggressive and highly driven to win as more of an aggressive mascot. You may have a logo that stands out like Apple, which is just an apple. One of the things that we learned in art school is that less is more most of the time. As far as information, less is more always. But when you're talking about a logo, one of the first logos that we studied was the Merrill Lynch logo. Merrill Lynch logo is just a bull. Well, the bull represents the bull market and kind of goes from there. So it's very standalone and iconic. Same thing with Apple. It's the same thing with that. Apple, if you really research a long time ago, it wasn't the apple. It was actual, like almost like a rainbow kind of. It was a rainbow symbol, and they had lines going through it and stuff like that. It wasn't rainbow, but it was like yellow, red, green, something like that, black. But they evolved to the apple. If you look at most of the most powerful companies that are on the market today, branding-wise, they're very iconic. If you see the Apple anywhere in the entire world, you know that it's Apple computers or the Apple brand. So a lot of times when people come in, there's a new segment. I'm not going to say a fad, but there's a new segment of design where they're dealing with mascots. And mascots are amazing, and they're doing so much for the industry. I'm not sure if it's going to last because back in the day when we first started designing stuff for HVAC companies or AC companies, we used to always put a unit on there just because it symbolized the air condition. Now we're getting away from all that over the last probably 6 or 7 years. Nobody puts a unit on there. They rarely put brands on there because then you're tied in with that. So for us, when we're trying to design a logo, number one, we do two things. We sit down. If we're going to do a full straight branding package, we stand on a number of pillars of information that we need. What your story is, first and foremost. 'Cause I need to know what your story is so we can build a brand around that. A lot of people just build a brand around a logo, or they build a brand around a name. So if your name is the dream, for whatever matter, for an example, and you can't tell me why you're named the dream, and there's no correlation to dream and HVAC, then I don't know what that is. So if there's a story behind that, and we can create a story behind what the dream stands for, it's kind of like a joke that you have already the synopsis for the joke, so you understand it, as opposed to not having it and just going, I don't get it. So we have to go through that, and we also go through what your end user is, who your end user is, because if you have, I heard, or I studied an artist, and he said that if your end user is a little old lady that's sitting in a thing making a decision for AC, and you come up and you have the scorpion with these fire coming out, and you walk out and you have a bald head and tattoos on your arm, they're probably not going to use you because they don't know if you're going to come in there and beat her up, or you're going to go there. But if you were to have a mask out of a hippo in a light pale blue car or truck or whatever van with hippo with a smile on its face and has a pipe wrench, but they're just kind of and just a hose over there, and you get out and the same guy gets out with the same tattoos and the same bald head and he has a smile on his face, she's going to feel just fine. So it's a matter of who you're trying to deal with. Second, how disruptive do you want to be? Do you want to have disruptive colors, or do you want to go with the norm? HVAC companies, what are the first colors, two colors that you think of when you think of HVAC? Blue and
white,
or one more. There's AC and heating, put it that way. I'll give you a hint. Yeah.
Okay.
So every 80% of the colors,
that makes total sense.
80% of the vehicles that are out there that had their HVAC or mechanical companies all have red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Well, that's because cold and then. Well, they'll have a flame and a snowflake. Problem is that's everybody. If you go to an AC supply shop, you see all these vehicles that are all white and all red, white, and blue. But if nothing stands out, then how do you know who's going to be different? So that's why a lot of these industries are going to these bright colors and things like that, and start going away and shift away from. I have a customer right now, one of the largest HVAC companies in Houston, and they're blue and orange. So they kept the blue, but they switched the red to an orange. The psychology behind that is to use orange because it's close in the red hues. So therefore it's still there, but at the same time it's super bright. Add a couple of different shades of blue in there, and so you're still connecting with the blue. But we don't have any kind of fire or any kind of snowflake or anything like that. But we do have a polar bear on it. So we do a polar bear on it, and so therefore it kind of ties everything in. We have an AC or electrical company that we've done. We use beige, black, and gold. And so for that, we ended up using a shield for their logo, and when we use a shield for their logo, it kind of comes off very clean, very succinct, but at the same time, that shield, it's almost like a guardian kind of thing. So when walking up to the doorstep, they feel safe. And so there's a lot of things that go into it, and what we try to do is we try to encompass it all. The biggest things is we have to get the client to be able to understand, especially if they're doing a rebrand, and it's going to be drastically different. So when somebody says, hey man, I want to freshen something up, I said, do you want to freshen something up, or do you want to do a rebrand? Two completely different things. Freshen something up is taking your logo, cleaning it up a little bit, making it more legible, changing the font maybe, and then kind of pushing it in a direction to where we can go ahead and do something to where when somebody sees it in Houston traffic where everything's in a hurry, you can read it quickly. The second thing is if you want to do a rebrand, and we're going to do a rebrand, I just need to know your 3 favorite colors. We'll do 3 favorite colors, and then I'll let you know if those work. We don't try to do very massive contrasting colors that they clash together. Red and blue next to each other. If you look at a red and blue, if you put a bunch of red and blue lines together and like about 1 inch apart, and then I'll put them all together, if you see it from afar, it looks purple because they mold together. So you have to understand color composition and color theory, because if you put two colors together that don't work well, then they'll go from there. Put orange and green next together, they look brown. So putting all that together and trying to understand their story and then relay that's the most important part for us when it comes down to branding. A lot of people want to get a catchy name, but they don't do their research. So it really surprises me a lot of time when somebody comes to me and they have a logo design, and I just take that logo and I drop it into Google Images, and how many of those same exact images come up. So now their company is no longer able to be trademarked. You can't use any of that because it's other people. If you're a small company and a bigger company has it, you'll get a cease and desist, and you have to remove everything that you've done, whether it's marketing, reps, website, whatever it might be. It all has to come off, and it has to come off pretty quick because it will come down on you in a heartbeat. So when it comes down to it, they have to understand that you can't just go to some of these companies that do these very, very cheap logos very quickly, or you can't get on some of these websites that have logos and you just plug and play all this stuff. Because if you want to grow your company, you want to trademark it at one point in time or another, that's going to be an issue. Now, we design to be trademarked. We design with that in mind, with that end goal in mind. We don't handle any of the trademark and everything else. We have resources of attorneys that we can send you to where you can go ahead and do all that yourself. But that's our end goal, is to be able to make sure that you have a logo that you can call your own and it's not somebody or take off. A lot of the misconception is, back in the day they used to say, hey, all you gotta do is change 20% of your logo and then you're good. It's such a rumor, and it's such a myth. You can't do that. Like, they can actually slam you if you're in the same industry with the same thing, and if it looks the same, that company can override you. And so there's a lot of things where people don't realize. And again, we were talking before where a lot of times people will say they have this name locked in, I got my LLC and everything else, and what they don't realize is that all you have to do is just pay a fee to go ahead and change the name and make an adjustment. You can't do it often, but you can make the adjustment, because they understand that people get these like heartbeat things, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, I want to name it Grandpa's favorite thing, and so they do that, and they're like, that doesn't really go well, and so they end up going backwards. Same thing with websites and things like that. I don't know how many people I know where they have like 7 domain names because they're just trying to get it to where like it becomes easy. A lot of times, I've known people that have like long. I'm like, dude, if you put that in your truck, how is somebody going to read that while driving 80 miles an hour on 610? You're not going to be able to get it. So you have to kind of do that. We did the same thing, but we have to kind of get that part where it's very close. Very short, very succinct, and go from there. We had the pleasure of doing your truck, and your truck was really, really cool because it followed the guidelines without me having to push that way. It had your name, had your number, had your website. That's it. Well, my main drive when I'm designing for a company is to make sure that I drive it to somebody or something that you have in place, whether it's a CRM, whether it's an AI intercept, or whether it's somebody on the phone grabbing it and talking. Because a person who can sell the best are people that are affiliated with your company. If you tried to put a bunch of services on your vehicle, number one, people have become so lazy, they don't want to read all that. Yeah. And number two, the bad part about it is that even if you put on these 10 services and you put and more, if somebody doesn't see a service on there that they need, they won't call you. They won't call you to find out what and more means. They just won't call you. So if you put your name, you put your logo, you put your website, those are the 3 things that are the most pertinent. A lot of times people say don't even put your number, they just put your website so you drive traffic to your website. I still like the number because it helps eliminate those national companies, especially if you want to do something local. Now, if you're a national company, that's all you want to do, cool, no problem, we put up. That AC company that I was telling you about before, they have 5 different areas that they service, and all 5 different areas have a vanity number that is tracked to find out what calls come in from what area. So, which is kind of cool as well. But there's so many things we can do with it. I'm not a big fan of QR codes, but they're coming back.
Really? I've never used that. I think that's
they're
no one's driving and be like, hey.
Think about this. When they first came out, you had to get a QR code reader. Yeah. Now all phones are adaptive to all you gotta do is put it up, hit that, and you're done. So they're a lot more effective now than they used to be. But our phones, no matter what phone you are, if you're in traffic, the only time I ever tell somebody to put a QR, or that I agree with somebody on putting a QR, is on the rear. Because you're in traffic. If you're in traffic, you can pick your phone up, hit it, and go from there without having to remember something, go from there. It's a good way to get a lot of information really, really fast. But I strongly suggest not putting it on the side. It just makes it just weird. Like it doesn't really go. And I find it more so than not, you're not going to walk up to somebody in the middle of a parking lot and go, oh, cool, and kind of take a picture. It's always going to be in traffic.
I agree. So for the, I'm just kind of curious here. I know we spoke about red, but like if you were to say like the 4 to 5 basic colors, like red, blue, green, yellow, what do they typically associate themselves with? So if someone's like trying to analyze in the color scheme of things for their company.
So like I said before, there's some evolution of that. It used to be red and green were food colors. Black and yellow were the most high contrasting warning colors. So you see all warning signs or detour signs are all red and black, or yellow and black. But red and greens, the most obvious one are things like Italian restaurants or things of that nature. And they used to think that it was tied with the Italian colors, but it really wasn't. It was more of a psychology thing where it made you hungry. Again, nowadays it's changing. There are a lot of things that you can do differently, and then kind of elicit an emotion or a psychological reaction to be able to go there. Things that are what's resonating right now are bold fonts and bright colors. So there's a little less connection now with colors that elicit a specific reaction, like being hungry. But I mean, when I was growing up, there was colors that used to paint your room because it would make you more peaceful. I think that there's still colors like that, but they're more, not necessarily specific colors, but more shades or levels. Pastels, things like that are used in hospitals. Whites, grays, light blues, light pinks, light lavenders, things of that nature, where it calms people down. Whereas if you were in a bounce house, there are bright oranges, bright greens, bright blues, things that make you kind of excited. So it's kind of like getting an atom to like really vibrate. Things of that nature. Colors can do that as well.
So if you were to start your own roofing company, for example, from scratch, how would you do it?
So for me as a roofing company, I would, if I was going to start out something, number one, for me, and again, I have a tendency to do this, I'm going super bright, whether it's an absolutely bright pink color, bright purple, bright green. I'm doing something super bright. Reason being is because I always do this. It's called the 610 test. On 610, if you ever come from Bel Air and you go into the Gallery area, you go up this big overpass going over 59 and you come down. Well, it used to be higher before they did all this construction. Well, when you stepped on the top of that overpass going over 59 and you look down, if you look at the cars down there, which one stands out? So if I have something that's super bright, very like impactful as far as visual, I'm going to disrupt the whole imagery of any color car that's out there, whether it's a yellow car, whether it's a red Corvette, whatever. That color is going to want me to get closer to it just to see what it is. And so that's what I would do if I was going to do something so disruptive, is to try to gain people's attention. I want somebody to try to get to my truck, get to my vehicle to see what it is. When you do a typical color, most of the time, most people, it blends in. And so when it blends in, it doesn't mean it's not effective. It just means that you're not going to garner attention from somewhere far away. You're not going to have somebody who wants to try to catch up to you to get to that part. But that's just kind of my theory. I know people that are complete opposite, and that less is more, and that you want to be as kind of like as normal as possible. I'm just on the opposite side of that.
With the color side of it, but then with the actual like call to action.
With the actual call to action, it's very simple. Simple as it's like your truck. Bold logo. Something that's clean and legible that you can see. That you're probably not going to use a serif font, which means have the edges on it, stuff like that. It's all going to be a block font of some sort, and something that's going to be super eye-catching and super short. If you do something super long, then you're trying to create, or you're creating something that somebody's been at work all day long, one way or the other, or just got up and trying to get to work, doesn't know what their days looks like. Most of the time their kids are on their nerves, trying to figure out how to pay bills. And then you want them to learn this big, long name. So when you're trying to do all that stuff's never going to stick. So what you want is to have a bold logo, simple, clean, number, website. That's the call to action that I want. I want somebody to somebody to have a touch point that's a human, or something that you can control automation with the CRM or AI assistant, whatever that might be, but to be able to lead you down the path that you need to be on. A lot of times, back when I was growing up, you had call centers, or you had CSRs that answered the phone. Well, nowadays there's so many different ways. There's automation, there's things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm still the old school of talking to somebody, because I think that person can sell and can go through the things more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So as far as the roofing truck that I would have, it would be very bright, but it would be very clean and concise when it comes down to information.
And then in terms of name, are you big on like a generic name, like for example Apple Roofing, or like something like Stevens Roofing Service or something like that?
So somewhere in between. I want something that resonates with me, mm-hmm. and my service, but I don't want something generic where you're going to forget it. You can have different and still be simple, but I think whenever you align yourself with Stevens Roofing Service or McCourt and Sons, blah, 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 I understand where it's coming from, and it's kind of an old school thought of, like a family-owned business and things like that. But what happens is, in my opinion, in my experience, it limits the amount of exposure that you can have for people who think you're a small company or a big company or whatever. And it just kind of tweaks the ideology of coming through.
I agree. And they don't know the person too, so it's like Stevens Roofing Service, so now it's like tied into that person.
Right.
I don't know Steven.
Right.
Whereas it's a little bit generic, it's the credibility.
Exactly. And so and guess what happens? A lot of times people do that, or they'll buy a company that says Stevens, right? And you'll go who we are, and they'll go to the CEO or they'll go to the owner or whatever, and nobody's named Steven.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, who's Steven?
Who's Steven?
Tell me the story behind Steven. Now, that could work for you in a good way, because there's a company out in Vegas, and the person who started the company, I think it's his last name, they no longer own that company. But when you open up the website, it tells you about where this company came from, and then of course that name is into that story. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people want to, especially now, gravitate to a good feel story. And they want to feel good about the service that they're getting, especially in the service industry.
Yes.
There's so many people, and you brought up roofing. There's so many people that are roofing chasers. So they come in for the storm, basically rip people off, and then they leave, and nobody else. But then there's some good roofers that are in town. I've got some of the best roofers that are some of my clients, but they're very, like, man, there's one guy who puts porta potties on site, so his people don't have to go somewhere, and they can just go there. And he's always on site, or his partner or one of his managers, they're always on site. So there's things like that. It just sets him apart. And so when it comes down to it, like, you want people that you can trust. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that you can't trust right now, and there's so many industries that you can't trust right now, because you always think in the back of your head, man, are they trying to rip me off? Mechanics, AC people, electrical people. Like, you're always wondering if they're gonna, like, if they're just writing something up just so they can bring their ticket up. The problem is that the companies are starting to understand that now and starting to come back with the story. And customer service is highly important in the service industry, whereas it's after 2020, it's kind of laxed for a long time, and people just didn't really care. Talk to people like however they wanted to talk to them, mm-hmm. and then at the end of the day, they just didn't. They don't care about customer service. Now we're starting to go back to that customer service thing, and to where that story comes in and the image comes in, and when you see them, it goes from there. I tell people all the time, I don't have image graphics on my truck. What I do have is an amazing piece of artwork on it, but I do have image graphics on the back window. So when I'm at a gas station, it elicits a response from people. They're like, oh my God, it's great. I have Joker on one side, I have a Harley Quinn on the other side. And so when it comes down to, people are like, oh my God, that's so cool. has this paint, and I have the opportunity to talk. The same thing with service industry, but people don't realize that, and then they hire techs that come in that they don't want to be bothered by anybody else. But can you imagine what would change is if you hired a tech that was personable? And somebody says, oh my God, you do AC? Absolutely, what can I help you with? And then kind of go from there. As opposed to, yeah, it's been a long day. I mean, I worked AC when I was younger, when I was in high school. I know how hot it is, I get it. But at the end of the day, I'm working on this daily where, one of the things my wife tells me about me is that I always have a non-approachable look. I don't mean to. It's just, man, I've got so many things going on in my brain that I try, that I'm just so focused on that sometimes I'm not approachable.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to work on that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have a smile on my face most of the time. I have a good friend of mine who's in St. Louis, and he says, man, every time I walk somewhere, I have a smile on my face. They probably think I'm crazy. And I'm like, well, I mean, it works.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a $13 million wrap company. It's obvious that something works.
So let me ask you a question. I'm kind of curious now, as you study like design, art, colors, and the psychological benefits of that, of what it entails subconsciously, do you also apply that to like your day-to-day life, like how you live life as well? Like, are you very particular with like structure and like your interior stuff?
It's funny that you say that, because I've always lived on the premise that we are right-minded, left-minded. I'm right-brained, so I'm super creative, all that stuff. My wife, opposite, completely organized, things like that. If she could have a house that kind of looked like a clinical hospital, that would be their thing, because there's not so much to clean up. She's meticulous about having our house clean. We foster for a large pug rescue in Houston, and we had a guy come over the other day to do our annual pests around the house and stuff like that. He came in on us, he's like, man, do you have dogs? I go, yeah. He goes, I can't smell anything. I was like, yeah, because my wife is meticulous about making sure our house is clean. But going back to that, I'm super unorganized. But I think it's a learned thing where you can do that. I'm getting way better at it. So when you come into my shop, a little bit of it is disarray and a little bit of it is clean. So we're working on that part, because I want people to understand that we are highly organized when we do things, but the problem is that sometimes it doesn't show on the outside. But ours is more visually setting. So when you come into my showroom, I have all my walls are wrapped. Everything is done. Everything is either purple, black, green, or purple, black, or teal. There's images of vehicles that we've done. We have a big case of all the awards that we've won. We have we have little knickknacks that we bought, like, again, the Joker truck, I have like little knickknack Joker toys on it. And at that time, because I've had customers come in with their kids, they've got nothing else to do and they're bored. So I'll just give them a toy to play around with, whatever. But as far as that, like, we try to be as organized as possible, but thinking so right-brained, that's like the secondary and tertiary part of me. So I'm getting better at that part.
I know we're kind of closing in on time, but my last question for you is, so in terms of image graphics, whenever you're looking at the competitors, what specifically sets you guys apart from any other branding marketing company? So
it's an interesting question. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. I try not to compare myself to anybody else, because if I do that, I'm looking left or right. I'm looking backwards. I'm looking anywhere but my goal. So what I'm trying to do is I don't really care about being the best. What I want to be is I want to be the premier wrap company in Houston. I want people to know who we are, but I want people to understand that we're there to I'm not trying to rebut who you have right now to what you don't have. I'm about to launch a campaign right now, is Does Your Wrap Suck? And I'm gonna give them an opportunity to send me their wrap, and I'm gonna give them an honest critique of what I did with 30 years worth of experience. So for us, what differentiates us is I think that I care about my team first and foremost, and I care about the clients that come to me. So what I want to do is I want to be able to be the very best fit for them. Sometimes we don't fit with you. Sometimes we fit perfectly with you. Sometimes I have to educate a little bit to let you understand why we fit with you. But I'm not just going to take any client and any customer just because you have money. I want to be able to fit with you guys because I want to be able to grow with you guys. So I think that sets us apart a little bit, and I'm not just trying to sell you something. I'm trying to help you get a better ROI on anything that you drive around to bring your company and raise your company's bottom line.
Yeah, you guys did a phenomenal job on the truck wrap, man. I appreciate it, bro.
Thank you for the opportunity and the time, and it was awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for the show. I'll see you guys in the next one.